I didn't notice it at first. The highway had that empty, suspended feeling you only get at dusk, when the sky is neither dim nor bright, and everything looks like it's waiting to decide what it is. My headlights hadn't kicked on yet, but the world was already losing its edges. The asphalt ahead was cracked and spidered with old repairs, pale seams threading through darker patches like scars that never quite healed. I'd been driving for hours. No radio, just the low hum of the engine and the faint electric buzz of the power lines running parallel to the road. They sagged between poles like something exhausted, humming just enough to make the silence feel intentional. The fog started as a smear along the ditches, then crept upward, thinning the distance until the road seemed shorter than it should have been. That's when I heard it. A ring. Sharp. Mechanical. Out of place. At first, I thought it was inside the car. Some alert I didn't recognize. I checked the dashboard. Nothing. My phone sat dark in the cup holder. The ring came again, clearer this time, cutting through the hum of the engine and the distant hiss of tires, though I hadn't seen another car in nearly 40 minutes. I slowed without realizing I was doing it. The sound wasn't coming from inside. It was outside. Ahead. Another ring. It echoed strangely, like it had too much space to move through and nowhere to land. I passed a weathered sign half swallowed by weeds. The lettering long faded. Something about emergency services. My memory stirred. These highways used to have those roadside call boxes. Metal booths with a receiver inside. Push a button and someone would answer. They'd been removed years ago. Too expensive to maintain, someone had said. Everyone had cell phones now. The ringing came again. Closer. I eased the car onto the shoulder. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, the sound unnaturally loud against the surrounding stillness. The engine idled, a low, uneven thrum. When I turned it off, the world dropped into a deeper quiet. And the ringing continued. It was unmistakable now. Not a digital tone. Not anything modern. A hard, metallic bell. Insistent, patient. The kind of sound that didn't expect to be ignored. I stepped out of the car. The air was damp and colder than it should have been. The fog clung low, curling around my ankles and slipping through the grass. The power lines hummed above me, their sound faint but constant, like something breathing far away. Another ring came from just off the shoulder. I moved toward it, boots sinking slightly into the soft earth beyond the asphalt. The weeds here were overgrown, wild, brushing against my legs with a dry, whispering friction. There was nothing there. No booth, no post, no sign of anything but uneven ground and a shallow dip where rainwater might collect. The ringing came again, louder, sharper. Right in front of me. I stopped. The space where the sound seemed to originate was empty, but it wasn't untouched. The gravel there looked disturbed, like something had once pressed into it and left a faint, rectangular outline. Not deep enough to be obvious, just enough to catch the eye once you knew to look. I crouched, ran my fingers along the ground. The stones were cooler inside that shape, packed tighter, as if they'd been shielded from weather. Around it, weeds grew thick and tangled. Inside the outline, they were sparse, short, broken, hesitant. Another ring. It vibrated through the ground this time. I pulled my hand back. The fog shifted, sliding across the space in a slow, deliberate sweep. For a moment, it gathered more densely within the outline, forming a pale block of mist that held its shape longer than it should have. Like it was remembering something. I stood slowly. The ringing didn't stop. It didn't change. It just kept going, patient as a pulse. "No one else hears this," I said out loud, though I hadn't seen anyone to ask. My voice sounded wrong, too flat, like it didn't belong in the space. From the road, a car passed. Headlights cut through the fog in twin beams, the tires hissing softly over the damp asphalt. It didn't slow, didn't drift, just passed, the driver staring straight ahead. The ringing continued. I turned back to the outline. Something was there now. Not solid, not visible in the usual sense, but present. A vertical distortion in the air, faint as heat shimmer, rising from the rectangular base. It bent the fog as it moved through it, shaping it into something almost geometric. Straight edges, right angles, corners where none should exist. The suggestion of walls. A booth. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. The air grew colder with each inch. Not just temperature, something deeper. A pressure like descending underwater. Another ring. This time it was inside the shape. I could feel it in my chest. I reached out. My hand passed through the distortion, and for a split second the world snapped into alignment. Glass. Smudged, scratched glass beneath my palm. A metal frame, cold and real. And inside, a phone. Black, old. The kind with a coiled cord and a receiver resting in a cradle. It rang. The sound was deafening up close, vibrating through the booth, through my hand, through my bones. I jerked back. The image collapsed. Fog rushed in to fill the space, the outline dissolving, the world returning to its dull, uncertain edges. But the ringing didn't stop. It just shifted. Now it felt farther away. Not physically, still centered in that same spot, but distant in another sense, like it had moved behind something. I swallowed. "You don't exist," I said. The words sounded less convincing than I intended. Another ring. I hesitated, then stepped forward again. This time I didn't reach immediately. I watched. The fog thickened within the outline, shaping itself more clearly now. Edges sharpening, corners holding. The vertical distortion grew stronger, darker. The booth was coming back. Not fully, but enough. I could see the suggestion of the door, the faint gleam of metal, the outline of the phone inside, hanging slightly crooked. It rang again, and I understood something I hadn't before. It hadn't been ringing when I arrived. It had been waiting. I stepped into the outline. The temperature dropped sharply, my breath fogging in front of me. The world outside dimmed, colors draining as if I were looking through tinted glass. Inside, the booth was almost real, enough that I could reach the phone. It rang, right in front of my face. I lifted the receiver. The ringing stopped instantly. Silence flooded in, thick and heavy. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a voice. My voice. "Hello." It was faint, distorted, like it was traveling from far away or far ahead. I froze. The line crackled softly. "Hello?" The voice repeated. I hadn't spoken yet. A slow, creeping realization settled in my chest. I lowered the receiver slightly, staring at it. The booth flickered. The fog outside pressed closer to the glass, or what passed for glass, flattening against it like something trying to get in. On the line, my voice spoke again. "I'm on the highway. I don't know where I am." The words were familiar, not remembered, anticipated. "I can hear it ringing," the voice said. "But there's nothing here." The booth shuddered. The outline wavered, then strengthened, as if the words were feeding it. I raised the receiver back to my ear. "Stop," I said. My voice sounded wrong, too close, too immediate compared to the one on the line. The other voice didn't react. "I think it wants me to answer," it said. The line hissed. Somewhere beyond the booth, a car passed, its lights bending unnaturally as they crossed the boundary. The sound of its tires stretched, warped, then snapped back to normal as it moved on. "I'm going to get out," the voice said. A pause. Then, quieter. "It's getting clearer." The booth solidified another fraction. I could see my reflection now, faint in the glass. But it wasn't matching me exactly. It stood a little differently, head tilted at a slightly wrong angle. Eyes fixed not on the phone, but on something just beyond me. Another voice cut through the line. Not mine. Low, distant, almost lost in the static. "Stay." The reflection's mouth moved, not in sync with mine. The booth door, something I hadn't noticed before, shifted behind me with a soft metallic click. I turned. There was no handle on the inside. The line crackled again. My voice returned, urgent now. "It's not gone," it said. The booth. The connection stuttered, then aligned. Perfectly. "I'm inside it." The words landed in my ear at the exact moment I realized I hadn't stepped out. That the road, the car, the fog, all of it was now on the other side of the glass. The ringing started again. Not in the booth. Outside. Faint at first. Then louder. I turned back. Through the glass, beyond the fog, I could see the shoulder of the highway. The disturbed gravel. The faint rectangular outline. And standing just outside it, me, holding nothing, listening, as the phone rang. And this time I understood. It wasn't calling for help. It was calling me in. And out there, it was still ringing. The GPS had been steady for most of the drive. Just a thin blue line stretching forward through a web of unnamed roads. No towns, no landmarks, only the occasional bend labeled with a number that didn't match any sign I passed. The farther I drove, the less the map seemed to correspond to anything outside the windshield. It was past midnight when the signal began to cut in and out. The screen dimmed slightly each time the connection dropped, the blue route freezing in place while the rest of the map lagged behind. Then it would snap back, correcting itself, nudging me onward. I told myself it was normal. Remote region. Weak towers. Nothing to worry about. Still, I kept glancing at it. The car's interior was lit in a low, sterile glow, dashboard lights, the pale rectangle of the GPS, the faint reflection of my own face in the windshield. Outside, there was nothing. No buildings. No trees close enough to define. Just a long stretch of cracked asphalt disappearing into darkness, and occasionally, very far off, a flicker of light that never resolved into anything I could identify. The tires hummed steadily beneath me, a soft, constant vibration. It should have been comforting, predictable, but the silence beyond it felt too complete. No wind, no insects, no distant engines, just the sound of my car moving through a place that didn't seem to notice I was there. I don't know when I first realized the map was changing. At first, I thought it was just another signal glitch. The screen flickered, subtle like a pulse, and then the view shifted. The map zoomed out a level, revealing a wider area. More roads appeared, thin gray lines branching outward in every direction. I frowned and tapped the screen, expecting it to snap back. Didn't. Another flicker. The map zoomed out again. I hadn't touched it. The blue arrow marking my position stayed centered, but everything else expanded. The roads multiplied, spreading outward like veins. Some of them curved in ways that didn't look natural, too smooth, too deliberate. They didn't follow terrain or grid patterns. They bent toward something. The signal icon in the corner showed a single bar. Okay, I muttered, just recalibrating. But the zoom didn't stop. With each quiet pulse of the screen, the map pulled farther back, revealing more of the surrounding region, if it was a region at all. The roads became thinner, more intricate, forming loops and arcs that overlapped without intersecting. I could see my route now as just one small segment in a much larger structure. And then I saw the shape. At first, it didn't register as anything specific. Just a pattern, an arrangement of roads that seemed too symmetrical to be coincidence. They curved around a central point. Around me, I leaned closer to the screen, the glow reflecting in my eyes. The blue arrow sat at the center of a loose circle formed by several larger roads. But the circle wasn't complete. Segments were missing, as if the pattern hadn't fully formed yet. Another flicker. The map zoomed out again. More roads appeared, faint, barely visible at first, then sharpening into clarity. They extended the existing curves, connecting gaps, reinforcing the structure. The circle tightened. No, not a circle. Something more complex. Lines intersected at precise angles, forming a shape that felt deliberate in a way I couldn't explain. It wasn't geometric in any familiar sense, no perfect squares or triangles, but it had balance, intent. A symbol. I didn't recognize it, but the longer I looked, the more it felt like I should. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "It's just roads," I said out loud, the sound of my voice thin in the enclosed space. Just a map. But the unease settled deeper, because the roads outside weren't matching what I was seeing anymore. A turn approached on the GPS sharp to the right. I slowed, scanning the darkness ahead. There was no turn, just more asphalt stretching straight. I checked the screen again. The turn was still there, clearly marked. The blue route curved off at a right angle. I drove past the spot where it should have been. Nothing. The map recalculated instantly, the blue line shifting to keep me on course. But instead of correcting to the road I was actually on, it adjusted to a new path, one that branched off ahead, where I could already see there was nothing but empty road. Another flicker. The map zoomed out again. The symbol grew more defined. I started to notice that the roads forming it didn't all exist in the same way. Some were solid lines, roads I might actually be driving on. Others were faint, almost translucent, like suggestions rather than reality. Yet the GPS treated them all the same, guiding me toward them. A sign appeared on the side of the road. I hadn't seen any signs for miles. It stood alone, reflective surface catching my headlights. No markings, just a blank rectangle on a metal post. As I passed it, I glanced in the rearview mirror. It was gone, not receding into darkness. Gone entirely, as if it had never been there. My stomach tightened. The hum of the tires seemed louder now, filling the car, pressing against my ears. I rolled the window down slightly, hoping to break the sense of enclosure. Outside, the air was still. No wind rushed in. No sound changed. It was like opening the window into a vacuum. I rolled it back up quickly. The GPS pulsed again. Zoom out. The symbol was nearly complete now. The lines curved inward, tightening around the center, around me. I could see how the roads connected, how each segment contributed to the whole. It wasn't random. It was precise. And I was moving along one of the final lines. A faint flicker of light appeared ahead. At first, I thought it was another distant house or tower, one of those isolated points that never resolved. But this one stayed fixed, growing slightly brighter as I approached. The GPS showed a turn leading directly toward it. I slowed, heart pounding. There was no road there before. But now, just at the edge of my headlights, I could see it. A narrow stretch of asphalt branching off from the main road. Fresh, uncracked, as if it had always been there, waiting to be noticed. The map hadn't changed. It had revealed it. I should have kept driving straight. I knew that. Every instinct told me to ignore it, to stay on the path I could verify with my own eyes. But the symbol on the screen felt unfinished. And I understood, in a way I couldn't explain, that I was part of it. My hands moved before I could stop them. I turned the wheel. The tires shifted onto the new road with a soft change in pitch. The hum deepened, smoother now, as if the surface were perfectly laid. The main road disappeared behind me. The new path curved gently, following a line I had already seen on the map. The light ahead grew brighter, though it still didn't resolve into any recognizable structure. The GPS flickered one last time. Zoom out. The entire symbol filled the screen now. Vast, intricate, impossible to perceive from the ground. Roads layered over roads, forming a design that stretched far beyond what I could physically see. At its center, the blue arrow pulsed. Me. The final line connected. For a moment, everything went still. The tires stopped humming. The engine sound dulled, as if muffled by something dense. Even the faint glow of the dashboard seemed to dim. And then the symbol changed. Not on the screen. In the world. The road beneath me shifted, not physically, but in the way it felt, like a subtle realignment. The darkness outside pressed closer, the distant lights snapping into new positions, forming points along unseen lines. I realized, with a cold, sinking clarity, that the symbol hadn't been drawn around my location. It had been incomplete, waiting. The map didn't guide me into it. It guided me to finish it. The GPS display went black. In its reflection, I could see my face, and behind it, through the rear window, a network of roads stretching out into the darkness, glowing faintly, forming the same shape now etched into the land itself. Perfect, closed, and centered exactly where I was.